Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday morning worship service. I am the Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, and I'll be your celebrant this morning. I'm lucky enough to serve this congregation as its minister, and I'm delighted to share today's service with Karen Fonts, a local meditation practitioner and a longtime member of this congregation who we've been missing seeing for a long time now because she teaches yoga at 10 o'clock on Sunday. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, we're very glad you're here. We practice radical hospitality in this community, which means we want to welcome you as you are and do our best to help you feel at home. To that end, there are newcomer forms you could fill out. They're in the foyer, they're in the newcomer packets. They're also on our website for those of you who are joining via Zoom. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags and they can help you get oriented. Most importantly, you should know that we like to gather after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in the Zoom room to drink hot beverages and eat tasty snacks and visit with one another. Beyond that, please do let us know what would help you feel at ease. We start our service by saying our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1,000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, Zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we're going to take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. So first, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you're at home, now is the time to turn on your camera and wave. Okay, now those of you who are here in the building, it's your turn to wave. We do have just a couple of announcements this morning. The Shared Worship Team is offering a Vesper service on the first Friday of March, April, and May. The service is going to begin at 5:30. It'll last about 30 minutes, and then it'll be followed by a simple soup supper. These meditation-based services will generally include a reading, a hymn, and an extended time of silence. We know that the stresses on our lives are many, and comforting opportunities to be with people sharing a sacred moment are few, so please consider joining us for Vespers. For more information, you can email Nancy Nelson or find her after the service. Nancy, you want to stand up and just wave? Also, tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at the Kenworthy, there is a free film showing of shorts by the Abortion Clinic Collective. Did I get that right? Where's Lisa? Abortion Clinic Film Collective. It's basically stories from people who have been impacted by abortion bans across the country. As I said, it's free at the Kenworthy at 7. Here end the announcements. We preface our service by acknowledging that this church was built on the ancestral homelands of the Namipu, known as Nez Perce, by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Stitsumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was taken unfairly, ground that cries out for justice and for our reverent care. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We're hoping that folks joining us via Zoom, chalice, or candle to light, and something to light it with. Let's all light our chalices together. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. Today's service, oh, my script just went away. Today's service is actually the final one in our series focusing on neuroregulatory techniques and practices. And we will be reflecting together today on the benefits of meditation. Studies have demonstrated that people who meditate are much healthier. Meditation lowers blood pressure, protects against heart disease, it strengthens our immune system, and even improves our digestion. Meditation also makes us glow. There are studies that show that it literally improves our complexion. Now, there are also studies confirming that people who meditate are happier. Regular meditation can help ease anxiety, depression, and irritability. Meditators enjoy better and more fulfilling relationships and are better able to manage stressful situations. Meditation changes our brain. One study measured people's response to pain stimulus with and without mindfulness meditation techniques. Not only did they report a lower pain sensation with the use of the technique, but the actual activity in the pain matrix decreased by about 45%. Another study demonstrated that meditation practitioners are able to reverse the thinning of the prefrontal cortex that leads to a decline in cognitive function as we age. Meditation quiets the amygdala, increases the concentration of gray matter in the hippocampus, which helps us form new memories. The postular cingulate cortex, which is associated with creativity and self-reflection, and the temporal parietal junction, which is associated with perspective taking and empathy. And those of you who are newer may not realize I kind of like to geek out on the neurobiology of spirituality. In other words, to boil it down, having a regular meditation practice is really, really good for humans, which is why we are so lucky to have Karen with us today to share teachings about deep meditation and its benefits, and to offer us some practices to experience. It's also why the shared worship team decided to host that monthly evening Vespers service. What could be more nourishing than meditating in good company and then eating soup together? As I mentioned in the announcements, our first Vesper service will be this coming Friday at 5:30. And now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit so that we can sing our opening hymn.
Good morning. I'm just taking a moment to, in the sound that comes after the song. Thank you. It's my aura, it makes the electronics go. I'm just kidding. But it's a really beautiful thing about the music that was just offered, the way that it integrated the experience of the early part of the service, and then hearing the tender joys and concerns that were offered, and feeling the sense of gathering together with the silence and the parts of ourselves that are held inside of our hearts that we don't necessarily share out loud. So the vibratory quality of the music is something that is offering something deeper than even the words themselves or the surface sounds. So some of the things we'll be considering today have to do with that. I'm going to share a reading. This reading is from a text called the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. This is a text from about 700 Common Era is the estimation of its provenance. Dissolve the mind into steady silence. As a result of the progressive melting, refinement, and subtilization of the activity of the mind, as it settles and becomes absorbed in the great emptiness, the intellect and interior awareness space becomes stable and resolute, and there arises an extraordinary, steady, and unwavering state. So this beautiful text describes many experiences, stages, and results of deep meditation, and references this experience of locating something deeper within, a peace and a stillness that arises as a result. So it's good, so good to be here with each one of you today. I'm Karen Fonts, and I'm very glad to be offering this talk. As some of you may know, I've been practicing a type of daily meditation called Nilakanta meditation since 2009, and I received my authorization to teach this practice in 2017. My meditation teacher is named Paul Muller Ortega, and Paul is a retired scholar of Indian philosophy and a translator of Sanskrit texts. He actually spoke here in 2017, and some of you may have attended that talk. Paul has been meditating since he met his first meditation teacher as a 17-year-old undergrad at Yale. And Paul's extraordinary life of practice, examination of the traditional texts and teachings, and particular way of viewing and articulating the results of deep meditation have been extremely impactful on my life. At the same time, I hasten to add, Paul is not a guru, and he makes no claims about his personal attainment. He simply has witnessed and experienced, after 60 years of meditation and decades of scholarship and teaching, the potency and transformation that results from the practice. Paul founded his school in 2006 and called it Blue Throat Yoga. It's named after an evocative myth from the Puranas depicting the journey of meditation. The practice of Nilakanta meditation is a householder practice. You don't have to own a home to have the practice. It means that you're living in the world. It's suitable for people living in the world as opposed to people on a path of renunciation, in which one's disposition and orientation toward life is of transcendence rather than an immersion into life. Nilakanta meditation is taught in a course that transpires over 2 separate sessions. So in this setting, I'm not able to give the formal practice, but I'd like to speak for a while about the principles, the fundamental principle of effortlessness in particular, and the benefits conferred by this practice, including the capacity to attune and attune to and experience life more deeply, and to discern the wholeness inherent in it. And then to conclude, we will do some beautiful practices that accompany this central pillar practice of deep meditation. So there's an elegant teaching axiom that helps us understand the distinction between a renunciatory and a householder meditation. And this teaching axiom is called the ocean and the wave. And the teaching is that we arise like waves on the great ocean of life. And when we meditate, what occurs is that our individuality subsides, or it sighs down into the ocean. The wave dissolves. Now, in a renunciatory path, the goal for that dissolving into consciousness is meant to be permanent. All vestiges of individual identity and agendas for life are given up. And the specific practices that are done are meant to dissolve that individuality in such a way that they don't arise again. However, the methods for meditation that are given in a householder tradition are meant to allow dissolving and melting to occur while one is meditating, but when meditation has ended, the individual life wave arises again, is reinforced and strengthened by that immersion into the inner depths, into what lies beneath. And the result is then that the wave actually grows stronger. We need to be strong for life, don't we? As we know, for those of us living in the world, there's so much to care about. There's so much to do. We're stewards of the planet and of life at all levels. In a householder practice, our wave is nourished and filled by its oceanic source, even while sustaining our individual identity. Indeed, identity becomes more whole, more refined, connected, and more identified with the entirety of the ocean, rather than only with our small, separate wave-like status. Over time, the wave knows that it is nothing but ocean, even as its wave-like structure continuously and strongly persists. And just as waves are never separate from the ocean, as the children said themselves, they are also not separate from each other. So the vantage point that grows under the influence of a deep daily meditation practice is that of an increasing unity with all of life. Now, it takes effort to be a householder in the world, as we know. There is never an end to the responsibilities and interests and joys and challenges in life. But very interestingly, this process of deep meditation in the householder tradition is effortless. Effortless. This is elaborated on in great detail in the medieval texts of Kashmir in northern India, this notion of ayatnata. Ayatnata, it means effortlessness. After my experiences earlier in life with meditation practices that were austere or difficult, this was extremely appealing. Now, success in having a meditation practice, it cannot be denied, is primarily about showing up. And this takes a certain effort, no doubt. But once I sit down for my practice, effort is released. The principle of effortlessness, as taught in this tradition, is governed by mutually influencing factors that have to do with the nature of the mind, the nature of the body, which, by the way, are both changeable features. We know each day when we get up, our body's a little different, our mind's a little different. That's variable. But then there's this easeful addition of the meditation method that has been given. This combination of factors is what determines our experience in meditation on any given day. And that's it. It's not about skill, luck, disposition, belief, culture, language, capacities, being spiritual, or anything else. You show up, you do your practice as instructed, you release the effort of trying to control or vanquish your thoughts or manipulate the experience of your practice in any way, and it just unfolds. So what is the nature of the mind? It's a very interesting subject that the tradition takes up. The Indian tradition loves to categorize, and it gives a prevailing quality to many features of reality, such as the inherent nature or swabhava of a fire is its heat. The inherent nature or the swabhava of a flower is its perfume. This tradition then asserts that the inherent nature of the mind is to move toward more. The mind is expansive. It is said to be like light in how it moves to flood a space with its presence. Whatever the mind is investigating, it floods with its awareness to discern the details and the nature of that object. We have each experienced the deep satisfaction of having the mind absorbed in something that it enjoys, something that nourishes it. Typically, these are external events, such as being captivated by some music or losing oneself in an absorbing task in which all of one's attention is engaged, laser-focused on one's work or creativity or investigation. When this happens, we know time stops. We experience a finality. And awareness of the body and any external stimuli are subsumed into that unitary experience. This householder tradition is neither body nor mind negative. This expansive quality of the mind is a beautiful human gift, and also the body is a beautiful human gift. It's a completely also non-negotiable part of being an individual life wave. What then is the inherent nature of the body, you might wonder? The tradition says that it is to sustain the highest level of healing and wholeness under the prevailing circumstances that it possibly can. The body is constantly working to heal itself at every level. Our physical health and functionality of critical systems, but also the emotions and the mental states and our complexion and everything else that Elizabeth spoke about are beneficially impacted by the addition of the meditation practice. This healing value, incidentally, is called soma, S-O-M-A in Sanskrit, and we'll take that up a little later as well. So the Indian tradition, incidentally, does not distinguish between the body and the mind with a hard division between them. Instead, it says that they're like two sides of the same coin. Whatever happens at the level of the mind is mirrored at the level of the body, and vice versa. A deep practice of meditation has, as part of its agenda, this highly beneficial process of healing our inner patterns of contraction, past pain and loss, physical imbalance, addiction, resentments, and the layers of fear, anxiety, and depression that we may carry. Through these are gradually but persistently released. Just as the ocean supports the wave, what lies beneath this outer structure of our individuality supports the functionality of our body, mind, emotions, all that makes us human. The tendency of the mind to move toward more, to be absorbed, allows us to be drawn inward now on a naturally occurring, interiorizing current of attention. We experience in that traverse that what we locate is still us, but it's just a subtler, quieter version of us. It's a little bit more ocean than it is wave-like. This interiorizing current by the vibratory nature of the practice that has been given and used properly. Then the body becomes restful. And as it follows the mind into a state of inner absorption, it begins to heal itself more efficiently, releasing the backlog of fatigue and its archives of pain and injury naturally and automatically, and this is the soma value at work. So rather than fighting the nature of the mind and the body, an effortless meditation practice harnesses their nature and the mind's tendency to move toward the increasingly potent spaces, and where it is eventually deeply absorbed into a space that's vibrantly alive and nourishing. It's not boring. It's not like an empty warehouse and you're just sitting around in the dark. It's very, very beautiful there. And then it's highly satisfying. Through this process, we eventually become freer of the patterns and reactivities that arise. And what results is a clearer and stronger version of who we naturally are, just like the seed that has that internal programming determining that fruition inside of us. Who we naturally are is what is being enhanced. Suddenly, we can begin to recognize ourselves in a higher capacity for creativity, for insight, compassion, problem solving. So having and doing an effortless householder practice of deep meditation permits us to look beneath, to see oneself, to see life, and to see into others from a perspective of greater wholeness. Then as we become enculturated to that inner space, our identity, more and more, begins to take up residence at that depth, in a place that is less changeable, not governed in the same way by the weather patterns on the surface of the ocean of life. It's a refuge, but it's not a hideaway. Whatever work we do in the world is fed by the engine of daily meditation. When I first learned my practice, someone in the audience with my teacher Paul raised their hand and said, you know, Paul, I'm not really all that interested in all of these nuances about the Indian tradition. I'm just an accountant. And Paul looked at him and said, you know, if you're an accountant, your meditation practice will make you a really good accountant. And what he was referring to is this capacity to look deep and to really start to holistically imbibe or understand whatever it is we give our attention to. This is the nature of a householder practice, the increasing capacity for clarity of thought, clarity of speech, and a higher discernment for spontaneous right action. And ultimately, these capacities are highly protective of us. In seeing deeper and seeing more clearly, we can discern what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. And this stance of freedom protects us from the difficulties that arise from thoughtlessness or carelessness or a reactivity that's arising from the past. As mentioned, the tradition that describes an effortless meditation practice is more than 1,000 years old. The texts that I study in my school and the teachings that have been handed down through the wisdom streams are very beautiful, and this is all very meaningful to me, and I hope to immerse myself in it for years to come. It's necessary to a degree for anyone who practices meditation to understand a little bit about how and why the practice works, just so the person can correctly interpret and also cooperate with what arises in a life practice. That said, my school, these teachings are not merely an academic study or an homage to an ancient way of being, and only some of the great number who practice take up the study in the way that I have. I'm kind of a geek about it. I don't apologize. But if you want to look for a normal person who does this meditation practice, please say hello to my husband. He's coming up on his 10th anniversary of practicing Nilakanta meditation with me, and he's a perfectly normal guy. I think we can all agree. So if you're nervous, you can talk to him. As stated, it's not about something external to us. It's not about adopting a religion. It's not about mood making. It's not about dress up or simply recreating feel-good experiences. And don't get me wrong, my meditation does make me feel good for all the reasons that I've already described, but it goes way beyond a temporary high. The practice of meditation isn't contingent on belief, language, culture, dress, diet, or belonging to any organization or group. Anyone from any walk of life who dedicates themselves to the daily regularity of practice, some days cheerfully, some days grumpily, inspired, or full of doubt. If they can stick with it, the deepening happens, and whatever naturally lies latent in the seed of their individuality waiting to express can come to its fullest fruition. And while some will argue that meditation is time wasting when there's so much to be accomplished in life, for me, my practice is what allows me to accomplish. It's where I reset my nervous system. It's where I rest in the depths before each day begins. It's also really about having a method of clarification and transformation of my human condition, a path to becoming the best version of myself possible. After many years of practice, which I know is nothing compared to some, I have a familiar perspective on the contours of my inner workings, the patterns and the struggles that have been healed and refined, as well as a compassionate lens on what is still being worked on. My personal experience, borne out in the laboratory of my own deep practice in life, gives me the certainty that if I persist, it will only deepen. And as we trust the growing evidence of our own experience, commitment and showing up for the practice rapidly gets easier as well. Life has its seasons, and so has any endeavor, including meditation practice, done for a long period of time. And we know that perspective and maturity grow when we commit to something meaningful and long-term. So we're now going to proceed to a sequence of practice, and as I explained earlier, the central meditation practice today isn't being offered, but in lieu of that, I've chosen from some practices that are from the same tradition and use the same elegant principles. We're going to do a practice in 3 parts. They will be sung, and then intoned, and then silent, to experientially feel a deepening of what is surface to what is subtler. So let's begin. It's hard to close your eyes when you're standing up for a prolonged period of time. So the first practice we're going to do is actually a sung mantra. Now, in terms of defining what mantra means in this context, in this understanding, a mantra is not just some affirmation or something you think or tell yourself again and again. In this case, it's actually telling us about a vibratory tool whose results are known. A vibratory tool whose results are known. This one that we're going to do first is called the Soma Pavamana Abhiroha mantra, and it's from the Upanishads. And the Upanishads, this particular Upanishad arises between the 7th and 6th century BCE. And this mantra is invoking wholeness, the Soma value. You can even see it in the name of the mantra. And it's sung. So we're just going to sing it. I'd appreciate your voices as we do this. Don't worry about getting it wrong. Don't worry about the Sanskrit pronunciation, etc. I'll do it many times, and you can just join me. In fact, actually, let's do it once, kind of call and response. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityor Mamritam Gamaya. Mrityor Mamritam Gamaya. So it's a beautiful invocation. Lead me forward. basically from that which is temporary to that which is more long-lasting, from the surface to the depth. You can read that abbreviated translation there. So let's sing. It's really about the vibratory quality. It's not about the words themselves. And we'll do it a number of times. You'll hear it in my voice when we're transitioning out. So let's begin. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotir Gamaya Mrityormamritam Gamaya. 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 Last line. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Just sit in silence for a moment. Now, beautiful nectar mantra, invoking wholeness, wholeness. So the second practice we're going to do is an intoned mantra, and we're going to repeat it as part of a visualization in which we're creating a sphere of wholeness and protection as we do it. So the mantra itself, Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. These are ancient and really famous mantras, and when combined in this way, they're actually invoking both the feminine and the masculine principle. The Om Hrim is the feminine, the Namah Shivaya is the masculine. And as we do this recitation, we're going to do it a total of 11 times, and with each recitation, we're going to go in a different direction. You don't have to move your body. You're just moving your awareness to the front, to the right, I'll mirror, to the right, to the back, to the left, infinitely below, infinitely above, and then 5 times in the middle. Okay? So let's give it a try. In the front, Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. To your right. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. To the back. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. To your left. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. In the center. Om Hrim Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Hrim. 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 You can rest now. So invoking the sphere of wholeness. This is a beautiful practice to do right before sleep. Doing this right before sleep, it's like you're englobing yourself, your loved ones, the world in this sphere of wholeness. Very good. So the last practice we'll do is silent. And in this silent practice, we're going to be reciting, it's on the third slide, we'll be reciting this nectar of wisdom mantra, Amrita Guru, Amrita Guru. So Amrita here is a synonym for Soma, or that wholeness value. It also means nectar. It's very beautiful, like you're bathing yourself in nectar. And then Guru here is not referring to a person, a embodied teacher. It's referring to wisdom, or maybe teacherliness that exists in reality. So when we're doing this practice, there's a little focal point of attention, and that attention is right at the center of the forehead. So somewhere between the hairline and the bridge of your nose, and somewhere between your right and left temple, you're just going to locate a very gentle, sweet spot, something that's attractive when your eyes closed and easy for you to rest your attention there. This isn't a hard focus. The principle of effortlessness applies here as well. You don't have to concentrate. It's just a very sweet alignment with this center point here. As we do the recitation, we are simply invoking this higher part of ourselves and the downstreaming of the nectar of wisdom. So we recite the mantra 2 times silently, and then there's a pause. And then at a certain moment, we recite it again 2 times, and then we pause. And then we recite it again 2 times, and then we pause. So let's just try it. I'll be saying the words so that you can remember what to say in your mind, but it is a silent practice. So closing your eyes, allowing your attention to gently rest in this sweet spot right in the center of the forehead and the subtle body. This is the juncture point between individual, wave, and ocean. And we just pick up the mantra, Amrita Guru, Amrita Guru. We just say it silently. And we pause for several moments. Amrita Guru, Amrita Guru. In the recitation of this mantra, it's like we're standing on the brink of a chasm, and we're calling across the chasm to the other side, to our higher self, to what lies beneath. And there may be an answer you can just see in your own practice. Amrita Guru, Amrita Guru. And we'll just sit in silence for a couple of minutes in which you can recite twice and then pause, recite twice and then pause. Let's begin. those subtle places and into the depths of our own being. But it is meant to help us be effective and to see deeper into life. We can begin to see and notice and experience, and then if we let it well, our spontaneous right action will be better aligned with justice and with the wholeness of humanity. We will be vehicles of service in a way that doesn't fatigue us in the same way. And all of our natural gifts, talents, skills, beauty that you came into this world with perhaps can be more fully expressed. Thank you for joining and listening and also practicing with me. Blessed be, so may it be.
Beautiful practices with us. We're going to sing now, and I'm thinking we should sing sitting down. This is a very meditative song called Find a Stillness. More time. Our closing reading is The Stream of Life by Rabindranath Tagore. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth in numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and death, in ebb and in flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this moment. I invite you now to rise and body your spirit. Let's sing together our musical benediction, There is a Love. As you move through the week to come, remember to breathe. Remember that which is underneath, which sustains and energizes. And remember your own capacity to sink down. You are wave, you are also ocean. And living at its best can feel effortless. Go in peace. Know you are dearly, dearly loved. And come back next Sunday. Oh, we forgot to put the chalice out. I always forget that. Okay. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Okay, now go in peace. Come back next Sunday.